This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, swine flu at the Coles County Fair, and we talked to one of the most popular people in the area, the crop insurance in Chester. And since the day-to-day weather forecast has been so accurate, we decided to look at it long term. All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. We start with some really serious news close to home. The new strain of the swine flu was confirmed in a child who attended the Coles County Fair last week. The Illinois Department of Public Health announced the case on Thursday and encouraged state and county fairgoers to wash their hands frequently, especially when they're around pigs. The IDPH is not sure how the child contracted the virus, but it is transmitted from swines to human. The best course of action is to wash your hands. We will have much more on this next week, but if you have any questions, please contact the local public health department or your personal physicians. Also in the news, we've been living through it all summer long, but now others are beginning to take notice of the drought. On Tuesday, the White House announced a series of steps to help farmers and ranchers affected by the drought.
A lot of folks are being affected by this. So today, the Department of Agriculture is announcing an additional $30 million to get more water to livestock and restore land impacted by drought. The National Credit Union Administration is allowing an additional 1,000 credit unions to increase lending to small businesses. The Department of Transportation is ready to help more commercial truck drivers to provide much needed supplies to farmers and ranchers. And the SBA, the Small Business Administration, is working with other government agencies to connect even more eligible farmers, ranchers, and businesses with low-interest emergency loans, as well as counseling and workforce programs.
The governor has also responded to repeated calls for assistance. Governor Pat Quinn announced late last week that 98 of 102 Illinois counties have been declared disaster areas by the USDA. The assistance this declaration provides is in the form of low-interest emergency loans to help agricultural communities, small businesses, and farmers minimize the impact of the drought. Farmers who believe they may be eligible for assistance should contact their county farm service agency offices, and the loan applications are considered on a case-by-case basis. That potentially could be a very large group of farmers. This week's crop report shows that statewide, 74% of the corn and 57% of the soybeans are rated very poor or poor. The report doesn't break out that number for the districts, but it's thought that our district, that number is probably much higher. The USDA has been keeping a close eye on the nation's growing areas all summer long, and the USDA's chief economist, Joe Glopper, has some thoughts on this year's drought as compared to 1988.
35% of the soybean crop, 45% of the corn crop rated poor or very poor. Those are comparable. In fact, the corn numbers are about equal to what they were in '88 at this point in time, and the soybean numbers are actually a little worse than what they were in '88. So we've seen a rapid deterioration over really 3 or 4 short weeks, such that we're at least the crop is in similar condition to what it was in 1988. 1988, we had 25% of the area insured. So a lot of people were hit by drought who weren't insured, didn't have crop insurance. You might remember we had this huge disaster assistance bill that came in afterwards and helped farmers, but again, paid only on roughly, you had to have a 35% loss, if I remember correctly. You only got paid on 65% of the target price, so you didn't get reimbursed nearly as much for your crop despite that disaster assistance.
Not satisfied with what others were saying about the crop conditions, that mad Todd Gleason hopped on his motorcycle and decided to cruise around to see for himself. What he found out was a bit surprising.
Last Sunday, I decided to go for a drive. I wanted to see just what the corn crop in central Illinois looked like. So I headed west from Champaign, making my first stop not far from the intersection of routes 47 and 136. I pulled 3 ears, spaced 10 steps apart and 50 paces into the field. That's about 125 feet for me. The first, second, and third stops, I was near McLean, Illinois by that time, all looked pretty much alike. 14 to 16 around for the most part and 36 to 38 kernels long. I dropped south on Old Route 66, the mother road through Lincoln into Elkhart, and then turned west on Blacktops, headed for the Illinois River, stopping near Fancy Prairie, the Cass County line west of Petersburg, and then Ashton, that's north of Jacksonville. They all look the same. So I turned south, thinking things would most definitely get worse. Not the case. They got better for 2 stops. And then, just to the east of Carlinville, I found the first real zero of the day. Well, the stop near Litchfield looked awful too. It was after 5 now, and I'd started around 10 a.m., so I turned northeast on Route 16. Things picked up quickly, and just outside of Paynham, my odometer hit 20 miles from the last stop. The outside looked great on this field. 7 full-sized deers on 4 plants. It looked good 125 feet in, too. I kept moving, turning north on 51 to Moweaqua, and then the back way to Dalton City and Cisco. That was my last stop, 300 miles from the first stop. What did I learn? I'll leave that for others to decide. You can see it all for yourself on my Twitter feed. My handle is Commodity Week. There's a tweet from each stop. For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.
One of the biggest differences between the droughts of the 80s and this one is the widespread use of crop insurance. And after bumper crop, many people have either forgotten or never had to use their crop insurance. So what should farmers and others know about crop insurance, and what steps need to be followed? I'm now joined by John Fall. He's the claims supervisor for Country Financial's Southern Illinois area, and you've been pretty busy this fall, haven't you?
It's been extremely busy. Fred, it's going to be a record year for us and other insurance companies, and it's going to be one heck of a year.
So what are you seeing when you're traveling around? What are you seeing?
I'm seeing really, really poor crops. Their crops are burnt up. The corn's not very tall. Mm-hmm. We was in a cornfield a couple weeks ago where the corn was no taller than the bumper of a car. The beans have taken a hit. It's just the worst I've ever seen. And I am an old man,
yeah.
And it's just the worst I've ever seen. The crops are burned up. Actually, it's really kind of sad to see this.
You work so hard all year long, and then to have Mother Nature just thumb her nose at us.
Yeah, and you know, it's been kind of amazing too, because the last couple of years we've had really wet springs, and now we thought we were going to have a good year because the spring was good. A lot of the crops got in early. And now for this drought to happen, it's just like I say, it's sad to see person's livelihood just burn up.
So, what's been you've seen some crops burn up. What's been the yields like that you think you're estimating? I mean, they haven't been.
Yes, sir. A lot of the appraisals we've done have been anywhere from 0 to 20 bushel. Mm-hmm. If you go to some of the lower spots, you might get maybe 30, 40 bushels, but as far as across the whole field, it's 0. I would say 0 to 10. Wow. The farther south you go, you get a little farther north. Just south of the Effingham area, you might get 20 to 30 bushel, but it's not very good. And like I say, I would say 0 to 10 to 15 bushel will catch most of southern Illinois corn that I've seen so far.
Now, the group of farmers I talk to every month, and I'll be talking to them next week, people, most of them have crop insurance. And I imagine a vast majority of farmers in this area have crop insurance. But this may be the first time in a long time that farmers actually have submitted a claim. What's the process like, and what should a farmer be thinking about?
Well, about 80% of the farmers in Illinois now carry crop insurance on their corn and beans. Mm-hmm. And what they need to be doing is talking to their rep or agent and getting a claim submitted, so an adjuster can take a look at the field. And the other thing that they need to keep in mind is they cannot destroy or touch that crop until an adjuster looks at the field.
Okay, so they need to get in touch quickly.
Yes, and we are encouraging our folks to turn in claims now so we can get the process started. But the other part of that is the actual claim, because of the harvest price that comes out the 1st of November, the actual claim cannot be settled until the 1st of November when the harvest price comes out for the RP policies. Now the YP policies can, once they've harvested what they got or an appraisal's been done on the field, can probably be settled earlier than that, but there's not a whole lot of YP policies out there anymore, but those policies can be settled as soon as an appraisal's done or the crop is harvested.
Now, we have some people who watch this program who aren't farmers. What is RPYP?
Okay, the YP is strictly a yield protection policy. There's no price involved. It's strictly a bushel policy. The RP policy, you have a price guarantee and a bushel guarantee. So that's where, and that's what most people take because of the price fluctuation a lot of times with the crops. But the YP is a yield protection or bushel policy only, and the RP is price and bushel protection.
Now, the spring was so wonderful as far as farmers go. A lot of them were chomping at the bit to get in the field. They're watching the field, the soil temperature closely, and many of them wanted to go before the April 6th initial planting date. What if you planted before that date?
Well, if you planted before that, you did not have replant coverage because there's a part of the policy is that if you need to replant, whether the crop doesn't come up or whatever it might be, you need to replant, there's coverage for that. So if you planted before April 6th, you did not have replant coverage.
Okay.
But as far as the production coverage, if you planted before the initial plant date, you still have production coverage. And what I mean by production, bushel loss, you have coverage for bushel or price loss.
Okay, so if you got in early and it shot up and then stopped, you
still have coverage.
Okay, what about beans? What have you been seeing with beans?
It's a little too early to get actual appraisals on beans, but the beans aren't very good either.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd be safe in saying a lot, but I think I would be. The majority of beans are not going to be very good in southern Illinois either. I know there's been a concern with spider mites in a lot of the fields, but as far as yield, the beans are definitely hurt too. I mean, they're not very good.
Nothing's growing.
No, the only thing that's growing is some weeds.
And those are in my yard. So,
Yeah.
So, okay, what are some, crop insurance has been this thing that's been in the background of a lot of our consciousness, and we haven't really had to deal with it. It's something farmers bought beforehand, and then, then they bought it again the following year. What are some of the biggest myths that most of us have about crop insurance?
The biggest myth, I think, some of it is crop insurance is a huge part of majority of farmers' financial package, I guess you'd say, or security,
right,
a part of their risk management.
Right.
And one of the other things too is it is important. And the other thing is, I know they're discussing the Farm Bill and that now. And,
yes.
and I think the thing that people need to remember is, yes, it's a government program, but the farmers contribute to that immensely. The farmers last year, and I think it's a little bit higher than this, but over 400 million.
Wow.
That the farmers contributed to the crop insurance program. So it's not a government handout, is what they're shared. It's a partnership with farmers, and I think what people really need to realize and take in consideration, because you're hearing part of the news people talk about it now, is because of the shortage, is if the farmers don't grow a crop, it affects everybody.
It certainly does.
And everybody likes to have food in their belly, including myself. So it's important part that I don't think people realize how important the farmer is to the country.
Well, if you don't have grain, you can't feed cattle, you can't,
That's correct.
You can't buy meat. So there's a lot going on in there. Now, another myth is the fact that this is government money. You said the farmers contribute it. Who manages the money for this funds?
Well, the insurance companies that are allowed to sell it have to sign an standard reinsurance agreement with the government, and they all have to abide by the same rules. But bottom line is the insurance companies administer the policy under the watchful eye of the federal government. So there's everybody has to play by the same rules. The premiums are the same. Everybody has to adjust the claim procedures are the same, so everybody has to follow the same procedures for crop adjustments. So there's plenty of oversight in the federal crop program. And that's the other thing too. Some people get confused about federal crop versus crop hail. The federal crop program is a government program. The crop hail that a lot of farmers buy is an insurance company only. The federal government has nothing to do with the crop hail policy.
Okay, so in summary, you're sitting there watching your crop burn up. First thing you should do is
contact your agent. Your agent has to, or rep, and they have to submit a claim. And then what Country does is we are doing our very best to contact everybody within 24 hours to help people through the process. It's a trying year, and I've told my people, and I know Country's doing this, but we want to take care of them the best we can. It's just going to be a heck of a year. Patience is a virtue, and I hope people have the virtue of patience this year, but I promise you we will do the best we can.
Well, it's been a painful year on a number of levels. Why not this last baby step? So,
yes.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Fred.
I'm here with Cameron Craig, and Cameron, you are all things weather for WEIU.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I just thought we'd take a chance to step back and look at the drought and how we got in, how it's set up and what's going to happen.
Well, I think that how the drought was set up was back in February, January, February, with the warmer temperatures.
Right.
With the jet stream shoved so far north in Canada, and we were stuck in this persistent ridge. Now, occasionally we'd have the jet stream kind of move into our area, bring us, a little bit of precipitation.
Right.
But I think that the overall average would have been that we were in a ridge for all this time.
Right.
And then it started to really set in with the warmer temperatures in March, where we 6 or 7, we broke some records in March. And then April was pretty good. May was pretty good. June we started to kind of get out of control.
Now, I remember reading back in March that they were thinking the jet stream was going to drop down. It never did.
Right, right, and that is due to the Arctic Oscillation, which was stronger, and so. What happened was it kept that jet stream up north, and we never did get that burst of cold air, which everyone was saying we were going to get. I was when the newspaper asked me, what is the outlook in November for winter, and I said it's going to be cold and snowy.
Right.
Well, that made me look a little under. What I know.
Well, trust me, everybody there's enough egg on our faces to make omelets,
that's
okay?
Right. That's
now,
right.
So we're in this system. Now, I know what little I know, and trust me, that's a lot. The La Nina that set up the jet stream was supposed to fade, and El Nino was supposed to kick in. Now, we've seen fewer hurricanes down in the Gulf. We've seen Texas is in this drought. Oklahoma is problematic. This drought is affecting the entire country.
That's exactly right.
What happened to El Nino?
Well, it's still there. We're late spring. We were coming out of La Nina, and then we were going into a neutral phase, and then the last half of, the last third of the year, we will start switching into an El Nino situation, and we'll see what actually happens.
Okay,
that's the thing.
So, in a normal El Nino year, the jet stream dips much further south.
That's exactly right.
And the Gulf moisture is pulled up, and we get that lovely cold front.
That's right, and we have gotten cold fronts. The only thing is that it's been so dry that any rain that comes our way just evaporates.
Okay, now how behind are we with this?
We are, as of the end of July, we are 11 inches.
A foot?
For the nearly a foot for the entire year thus far.
So we need at least a foot of rain
just to get us back into
to where we were, and hopefully not all at once.
Right, and we don't want it all at once, because what will happen is, like in Chicago this weekend, when they had a huge storm system move through, there was a flash flood warning issued because the ground is so dry that the water cannot get through, can't percolate through that. And so it just stays on the surface and then runs off. We don't want that. What we want is a nice warm front scenario where you have a nice drizzle for days. For days.
You know, London-esque.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And the thing, how we, in June, we started to see dryness. And what happened is that when you remove the moisture from the surface, you increase the surface temperature. And so that's when we started to see our temperatures bump up. And because just think of it like a sweat on your skin. You have a nice gentle breeze, it feels cooler. Well, think if you didn't sweat, it would be extremely hot. All right, so that's what's happening. So hotter temperatures increases the evaporation rate, which then dries out the soil even more. And then you've got the plants compounding the problem, where you've got the plants are pulling the moisture further out through transpiration. And so it's a constant positive feedback cycle that we can't get out of.
Okay, so if the jet stream straightened out, and darn you jet stream, you better straighten out.
Well, we don't want that either.
No, not straighten out, I mean, as far as,
dip. We want it to dip into our area.
So if the jet stream starts behaving better, okay, where is the moisture going to come from? Because, I mean...
We need a nice channel of moisture from the Gulf, a nice low-level jet, which is close, it's like a jet stream, but it's near the surface, and it needs to channel overnight into our area so that we can get this complex storm system, not to get too technical, but we want this system to kind of hover over us overnight.
Okay.
The rain that we got last week was really nice because we got 0.02 of an inch. It was nice because it happened in the late evening hours, and that allowed the moisture to kind of soak through the soil without the sun evaporating away.
Right. Now, I'm wondering, with so much of the country very, very dry, if we got Gulf moisture, wouldn't it fall over Texas and Oklahoma first? They are even further in a drought.
Right, only with a storm system, a low-pressure cell or low-pressure system.
So timing is everything.
That's right, and they have not seen, you know, significant mid-latitude cyclones move through their area. We've gotten the touch of it because all of these storms have been Alberta Clippers, further up into the Minnesota and Wisconsin. So what really the jet has got to come down from Canada.
One last weather moisture type question. This drought has really made me appreciate even more the Mahomet Aquifer. Okay, we are blessed with that huge body of water, hundreds of feet underground.
Yes, underground.
Okay. I read where that aquifer has dropped inches, which usually doesn't happen. I know the Texas drought has caused the Texas aquifer that's not connected to drop over a foot. How much rain, how much snow? Are we talking seasons, multiple seasons of this? Are we talking
years?
Years.
We're talking centuries to refill the aquifer.
Okay.
Southwest United States, in Tucson, Phoenix, the aquifer drained in the 80s. They completely drained it. We don't want to get into that same situation. No. Farmers in southwest Kansas are kind of nervous about pumping, doing their pivot irrigation. And so they're kind of weary about their aquifer. And we need to be concerned about it because it is draining and we keep pumping up more water. I think that this particular drought situation is going to make people realize how much water they do use, and we need to reduce you know, the overall water consumption, or we're going to find ourselves in a heap of trouble.
So I should be telling my daughter no more 45-minute showers.
Exactly.
Well, Emily, you've heard it. Okay, Cameron, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And finally, this blows my card and candy for Valentine's Day out of the water. 15 years ago, a British farmer named Winston Howe lost his wife, Janet. As a tribute to the love of his life, Howe spent weeks planning and then planting 6,000 oak trees to make a heart-shaped meadow in a 6-acre field. The point of the heart is directed to the small town of Wootton Hill, where his wife was born. And for years and years, it was only known to Howe and his family. The meadow went mostly unnoticed until a balloonist floated by recently and took some pictures. I don't know, but this grove of tree might be the sweetest crop ever grown. Well, that's it for this week. Join us next week for our monthly area crop survey. It promises to be informative, and with my crew, who knows what they'll say. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.